Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about troubleshooting error messages that you might encounter when filling in these simulation forms. So I'm here back at the template simulation form that you come to if you select the anode LFP template. And I'm going to intentionally break some things on this form so that you can see what happens in those cases. So one thing, a basic thing, but one thing that you might encounter is if you neglect to accept the terms of service and you go to submit your simulation, you'll be bounced to the top of the simulation queue, and you'll see there's a informative error message that says please do agree to our terms of service in order to submit. So in this case, the error message is kind of self-explanatory. You just need to really make sure that you do tick yes to our terms of service, and then when you press the simulation button, submit simulation button, it will go through successfully. Another error message that you might encounter could arise if you fill in one of these numerical fields in a way that doesn't make sense. So I think a good example of this would be if you set the number of computational nodes in one of the regions of the battery to something nonsensical. So let's imagine we say there are 0 computational nodes spanning the anode. If we go and try and submit that simulation, similarly we're bounced to the top of the simulation form, and we get an error message says this, so please go and check for errors, pointing us to the parameters fields. And when you scan down, you'll see that DandeLiion tries its best to highlight for you where it thinks the error message is. So you'll see in this case here, it's identified correctly that the issue is with this field, and it even goes and says please adjust this value to something of 2 or larger. So we can return that to 50, say that's the default setting, but of course you're at liberty to change that to be whatever you like. And then if you pressed the submit simulation button, similarly that would go off without a hitch. One other place that you might encounter errors, and actually I expect this to be the most common place that errors arise, is when you're filling in these functions which go and characterize things like overpotentials and diffusivities in the different battery materials. So let's imagine that you make a mistake in your syntax. So a good example might be, instead of using the exponential function like this, you might try and do something like that. That's a kind of thinkable error that someone might make. So let's do that as an example, and let's try and submit our simulation. Again, here we're bounced to the top of the form, and DandeLiion gives us an informative error message. It says this time you should go and check the functions, so things like the conductivities, diffusivities, and overpotentials. And indeed, if we scan down the form, it's identified which of these functions contains the syntactical error, and then it's up to the user to go through and double check that the syntax makes sense. So we've given some hints and syntactical advice in the caption here, and based on this we hope that users will be able to do this correctly. So if I go and correct that error and submit our simulation, indeed we find that's gone through successfully, and that one's been submitted to the queue as well. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video where we'll talk a little bit about some of the more advanced features that you might like to use in the simulation form.